Is anyone surprised that I'm reasonably good parliamentarian?
Good politics runs in people's DNA.
And it can run a very long time if you look at the Marquess of Salisbury.
This is Lord Attlee. He often hangs out here, servicing old military equipment. But he also hangs out in Parliament.
Does the minister think it's morally right?
Because he's a hereditary peer in the House of Lords.
I have done nothing to deserve my seat other than carefully select my father.
He gets a say in the laws of the land simply because of his family. And now he's one of 92 hereditaries the government is going to boot out once and for all.
The system we've got has significant advantages.
Is there any benefit to having hereditaries in the Lords? And if they go, who will replace them?
I've not driven that one. I know that one intimately, that one intimately, that one intimately, that one intimately, that one intimately.
Welcome to the vast warehouse of the Remy Museum, where the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers store and service military artefacts. And welcome to one of its most dedicated volunteers, Lord Attlee.
This is your happy place, is it?
Indeed, yes. Yeah. Yes, this is my pastime. So, you know, I'm a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde character, really. So you've got me in Westminster, peer of the realm type thing, revising legislation, being additional check and executive, and a source of expertise. But this is what I do for playing.
Lord Attlee has been servicing the Conqueror Armoured Recovery Vehicle, a piece of equipment roughly the same age as his hereditary title.
So I'm now in the driving position.
The grandson of the former Labour Prime Minister, he's sat in the Lords for 32 years, 27 of them as a Conservative.
Is anyone surprised that I'm reasonably good parliamentarian?
So you think there's good politics runs in people's DNA?
And it can run a very long time if you look at the Marquess of Salisbury.
With the government set to abolish the remaining hereditary peers, Attlee, like these wartime relics, could soon be out of commission.
And I'm absolutely happy to admit it, that I have done nothing to deserve my seat in the House of Lords other than carefully select my father, and he did the same thing. On the other hand, no one can say to me, well, we didn't put you in the House of Lords to vote this way or say that. I can say and vote exactly how I like. And of course, the hereditary peers, they come from all around the country.
Mm-hmm. Even though they come from around the country,
yeah,
none are people of colour and none currently are women.
Yes, absolutely, that's a defect. But the problem with the women is fixable if you wanted to. But what's the point of fixing it if we're going to stop the system because it's anachronistic? On the colour, yes, there's nothing you can do about that.
Are we really going to continue to have those laws passed by an upper chamber, a majority of whose members are not there by merit or election, but by birth? Perhaps because 300 years ago, one of their ancestors was the mistress of a monarch.
It was back in 1997 that Tony Blair was elected on a promise to reform the House of Lords, with the first phase being the end of the hereditary peers.
This Parliament is accordingly prorogued.
But 2 years later, a deal was done to let 92 remain, a temporary measure until further reforms were agreed upon. Yet that never happened. When hundreds of hereditaries were ousted 25 years ago, the idea was that the Lords would essentially become a better institution. But since then, we've seen the rise of cronyism, prime ministers appointing party donors and allies, with critics questioning their legitimacy, given that the Lords is meant to be about expertise and not party loyalty. And so the question now is, once the last of the hereditaries are gone, will Labour go further with Lords reform, and how? Sir Keir Starmer had spoken of abolishing the Lords and starting again, with Gordon Brown releasing a report in 2022 that recommended drastically overhauling the upper chamber. But Labour has steadily backtracked. Its manifesto committed to abolishing the hereditaries, but also mandatory retirement at 80 and reform of the appointments process, neither of which are in their proposed bill.
One of the arguments has been, for the last 25 years, that nothing should be done until everything can be done, but nobody agrees on what everything is.
Keir Starmer does present himself as quite pragmatic and realistic, and I think if you're pragmatic and realistic, it's sensible to do the small things first.
Meg Russell is the director of the Constitution Unit at University College London.
Reform is very complicated. We have a House of Lords which is obviously appointed, not elected, and a lot of people would like to see an elected second chamber. But when you start talking about an elected second chamber, other people fear that maybe that will start challenging the primacy of the House of Commons and what electoral system would you use. And there are actually things that people appreciate about the House of Lords. They quite like the fact that not everybody in there is a party politician. They quite like the fact that there are some experts in there.
Do you think the Lords would lose something by getting rid of the 92?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think that most people engaged in this appreciate that many of the individuals who are hereditary peers have made, very worthwhile contributions to the House of Lords.
And that's what Lord Attlee argues, that his previous career in the heavy goods industry is an area of niche expertise that will be lost.
Not quite true to say it's not a representative system, because we've got about 400,000 lorry drivers, and no one else in Parliament has any lived experience of being a lorry driver. Mm-hmm. And not only am I a lorry driver, I'm actually a qualified HGV driving instructor. The role of the House of Lords is to revise legislation, be an additional check on the executive, and a source of expertise.
And it works perfectly well at the moment, or not?
Nothing works perfectly, even the military. It's got a 5-speed crash gearbox, no synchromesh.
But he cannot stop a manifesto promise from Labour, who call the hereditaries out of step with modern Britain.
We talked about female peers and female hereditary peers. Female can't drive a tank like this because it can't pull the stillers hard enough.
As the hereditaries prepare for one last ride in Parliament, critics will be glad to finally see the back of an anachronistic anomaly in our constitution. For Lord Attlee, it is a time to reflect on his political career.
I've done 32 years. I've given a really good return of service. I've had a fabulous time. It's given me a fabulous career. I've been really lucky to have that position. I've done the best job I possibly could with it. I think I've met my obligations to society.